Well, hello, everybody. Spirit of 420 here because everything I do is so 420. And it's been my life since I turned 14. But quite frankly, for those of you who know me, it was my life from the day I came into this world because my mother and father were both tokers, and God bless them for it. Figured I would start off. Oh, man, I'm almost out. That is not good. You can't see it, but I'll have to get another one. I can't stand that. I just wonder. Let's see something real quick. Maybe if I. Can you see that it's empty? No, that just makes it fucking worse. All right. So that light really, I know it's supposed to be there and all, but anyway. The opinions the stories that I tell you on here are absolutely 100% factual. They are all mine. My opinions are my own. You cannot have them, but you are more than welcome to share them. That is hot. That is fresh. Boy, just out of curiosity, and let's see if anybody's actually already listening, but does anybody make their coffee with an AeroPress? We'll find out here in a minute. Anywho, on to today's topic. I have a few things that I wanted to discuss today, just real quick. The topic for today is going to be my karmic debt. And I did a piece not too long ago, or a short that I called Karmic Justice. This is more of a follow-up to that because of why I'm doing is really what it is, why I'm doing this, right? My karmic debt. And then I also want to tell a quick story about the first time that I caught visuals from LSD. And that was when I was a whopping, and I had done LSD, don't get me wrong, but when I say caught visuals, I'm not referring to the walls breathing, and I'm not referring to, trails from your hand, because that everybody gets that. I'm talking about where you actually see something that, wasn't actually there manifest itself into reality in front of you. And the first time that happened for me was 19 when I was living on my own in Midtown Atlanta. And we'll get to that here in a minute, but going to take a hit for all those that are out there. Thank you. Here we go. I also thought today I might start the show off. Everybody seems to like it when I take the dabs, and it gives some time for people to get in here. I don't know if anybody else is in here. If they are, they might be watching from Twitter where they can't chat. Thanks for joining me. And I have the largest following of any place out there right now on Twitter. And thank you so much for all the followers. Peaked over 800 this morning. So that was pretty cool. And I mean that. It was actually not pretty cool. It was very fucking cool. That community for, almost entirely, and I will say 99% of that community is extremely loving, caring, positive, and just an awesome community all about. And I'm actually getting tweets while I'm sitting here talking. So anyway, let's move on to the first subject of the day. So what I call my karmic debt, and I do, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Let's do this. I almost kind of lost my train of thought. And I'm going to just do this real quick for those, just to waste a little more time, give a couple more people a chance to get in here, since I just went live. I don't know about you guys. I love these little alcohol wipes. They are a lifesaver when it comes to a marijuana person, particularly if you're a dabber, because you can, get that grossness off your tool so it doesn't get all over your hands and all over your piece, right? There's nothing worse than that. So the reason I'm going, I just want to talk about this too real quick. Oh, I got to put the old man glasses on. The reason I'm going live at 420 is because it was voted for me to go live at 420. But I'll tell you this, folks, as long as it's 20 after, it's 420 somewhere, everywhere. So I always have the spirit in the sense that anything I do is always going to be on the 20-minute mark, 20 minutes after the hour, because I know someone somewhere is celebrating their 420 the same way I have been doing since I was about, I guess about 22, 23 years old is when I heard about 420. That's when I really started. So that's been over 20, 27, 28 years that at 420 for as long as I can remember, unless it was physically, I was physically unable to do it. And what I mean by that is there were certain jobs where I couldn't just take a break. But even at most jobs, you would find me on break at 420, and anybody who knew me knew what the hell I was doing. So let's go ahead and start the show off. Before I get into that karmic debt situation, an issue, let's go. Oh, by the way, there is a t-shirt giveaway going on. The t-shirt is pretty badass. For those of you who don't get it, it's 4 stripes here, 4 horizontal stripes here, 2 horizontal stripes here, and then a circle here. By the way, I have orange on. It's a type of awareness. I'll get into that in a minute. But let's do this tab. Anyway, the t-shirt itself, that's what's on the front. So it actually kind of looks like it says LO, which is a great way of saying hello to your fellow stoner without a big 420 sitting on your shirt. But on the back, it's a dead giveaway because it does say dirty dabbing. Nobody puts butter in the corner, right? And you shouldn't put butter in the corner. That's just not the place for it to go. There we go. That's better. By the way, I did find it. I haven't been able to get it installed. I have to upload it to the software that I use to stream. But I did find a nice smoke effect for those of you who really enjoyed the smoke effect from the pre-records. I know that there's a lot of folks that do. So I will be adding that to the stream here soon, which will obviously make it much more, how do you say, spirit of 420, right? So on to the first topic. My karmic debt. So, you know, I've talked about it a few times. Oh my goodness, I got the the stupid coughs. I've talked about it a couple times before. But, you know, obviously I'm a ex-drug dealer, ex-drug lord even, if you will. And did it for many, many years. I was in that business for roundabouts just under 11 years, so 10 plus years. Really started at 14, technically speaking, because the very first bag, and there's, you know, that's part of, if you want to go back and watch that episode, that's one of the early episodes. But I got my first bag by selling 3 other bags, right? I got an ounce, sold the 3, boom. And there you go. So I got into drug dealing really quick. And then very shortly after getting into drug dealing, I kind of went by a different persona and became a real jerk, just a real dickhead to anybody who knew me. And it was kind of, you know, do it my way, do it the highway. And as I got more and more power in drug dealing, I became more and more of a dickhead. And I really, you know, as the Spider-Man saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. I didn't handle any of that power very well at all back then. I just kept becoming greedier, more hateful, envious of those who still had more of me, right? Those kind of things. And when you're that kind of person, I'll just tell you, you don't realize it when you're that person. I'll say this. And if you do, you may not put it together, but you're a pretty unhappy individual. You don't have true happiness. You don't have what I've come to find out, you know, truly loving yourself. And when you truly love yourself, you can actually love somebody else. You can love other people. You can give love back to the world. But if you don't love yourself first, that doesn't happen. And if you're, you know, going down that path, then most likely you're not loving yourself. But essentially, that was who I was for years. And, you know, after coming around, and I've this has already been out there too, but after coming around to, you know, living in the light, if you will, at around 46 years old and all that changing, it just, the overwhelming need for me to put out that same amount of energy of positivity versus the negative energy that I put out, right? So for 46 years, and I'm not saying I was absolutely negative all the way up to 46, it was a gradual change, right? I had my kids, and that was a big change. It started at 28 when I had my twins. But my point is, you know, the real switch being flipped, if you will, happened at 46. So, you know, for, let's just call it 40 some odd years, I was a real negative Nillian and putting that energy out there. And if that's the energy you're putting out there, obviously, you know, one other just notion, that's the energy you'll get. So to me, the karmic debt is that I have now at 50 years old, particularly when I started this is, you know, just before my 50th birthday, I now have a limited time. That's how I look at it, right? I might have half of the time that I've been here left. The average age being, I think, around, shit, has it even gone to 75 yet for men? I don't think it is. So in my family, it's fairly decent. So whatever. But I will say this, back to the point. I feel like I have equivalently around half of the time that I've been here, which means I have about half of the time that I was able to be negative to be positive. So therefore, karmic debt tells me that I've got to be twice as positive as I was negative. And this isn't to appease God or anything like that. That's just for myself, because I feel like, once you come into that place, that's kind of, I think that's everybody's own decision. But I mean, for me, it was a no-brainer. I didn't have a choice in it, put it that way. So, hey, bro, what's up, man? So moving on to, I will end it with this. The bottom line and the straight point of it is, I feel like this is something I have to do to give back what I already took. I took a lot of money, a lot of people's happiness. I was a real jerk, and we'll get into plenty of those stories. I mean, you just don't understand. If you think I'm nice now and overly nice, you got to understand I'm trying to be twice as nice as I was a dickhead, and I was a real dickhead. It's just that simple, right? So it's a karmic debt thing. And with that, we'll just leave it at that. We'll go with that. Story. As I said, the topic today was karmic debt. You got that. The story for today is the first time I caught visuals. For those of you on the tweet, I probably had it. I did tweet it out earlier that, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. I did tweet earlier that there was a topic and a story. The story is the LSD experience. And I had that at about 19 years old. I was living in Midtown Atlanta. Anybody who knows Midtown, and I imagine this is a lot of urban areas. I know it was in the South, but they have a lot of these little buildings that are just these little studio apartments, right? And ours was just a stretch of buildings, and there was 5 on top and there was 5 below. And literally it was what I call a hallway apartment. You would walk in, there was a living room, there was 2 hallways on each side of the living room, which went back to the bedroom. So, and one hallway was a kitchen and one hallway was a bathroom. So it was very efficient. And it was very cool. And I think that there was only couples and singles living in there. And it was a very diverse group. I mean, my next door neighbor was 2 gay gentlemen. They were not a couple, but they were sharing the apartment due to, just money. The next one was a drag queen who was, he loved to show me. It's actually the first time I sat with him and watched Total Recall for the first time. He was a big Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, but no, nonetheless, he was I guess transgender, but he stayed, he was a male all the time, but I guess that's just a drag queen, right? To be technically honest or technically correct. He was a drag queen. So he was, a guy during the day, but at night, and he would do shows, and he was really, really a great performer. And then, I mean, the list goes on. Upstairs, you had a black guy that was in the Atlanta Philharmonica. So didn't make a lot of money, but he was one of the flute players. That's actually where the story happens. There was a white and black couple right beside them that was male and female. And it was kind of funny because it was the 90s, and she was a very large woman and he was a very skinny black man. It was so stereotypical. It was funny, but all these people were awesome. And of course, if you know anything about me, I have no judgments against anybody. And in fact, I got the acid from the one guy. I think he was the only other straight dude in there. I think we were the 2, and funny enough, we just lived, he was above me, but he was the property manager. He was also one of those dudes that rode a bike all day. What do they call the carriers, right? The bike carriers, like Quicksilver. Remember that old classic? There's a Kevin Bacon for you. Anyway, so pretty sure it was from him. I got a dab of white blotter. And when I originally did it, quite frankly, I thought I was going to have somebody with me the whole night. And for those of you who don't do acid, let's just, stop for a minute. If you've never done it, it is something absolutely that you should have a babysitter for the first time. And in fact, any mind-altering drug, let me just say that you take for the first time, even if you have done other ones, I recommend that you do it with at least one other person there, even if they're on the drug. My wife was like, well, if both of you are tripping, can't you both lose touch without it? Yes, that is a possibility, but the reality of it is much, much. I mean, we're talking ridiculous odds that both of you will lose your shit, because usually when one loses their shit, anybody who's tripped and knows this, But when one loses the shit, the other one's like, dude, it's cool. We're just tripping, man. Just, they bring you back. Right. I've even had nights where brought each other back. So nonetheless, you do not really want to do these mind altering, hallucinogenic, particularly that's the one. I shouldn't say mind altering, but you don't want to do these hallucinogenic drugs for the first time by yourself. Not a good thing. And in this particular night, I'm only going to go with part of the story. I'm only going to go live for just a little bit. I have a lot of other things, but I do want to try to continue to do more and more live streams. And by the way, I think I alluded to it earlier. It was voted on. I never said it, but I did a Twitter poll, and got more than enough votes. Like I think it was 25 votes that 64% said 420. But I will tell you this, and I mean no disrespect to those who are here by any stretch. If the engagement is not the same as the other times, then I'm probably going to go with the ones that I get the highest engagement. Again, it'll always be 20 after, so it really doesn't matter. It's always 420 somewhere. And that's the spirit of 420. Hell, even when it's 459, it's 420 to me. So maybe I should make that a little clip. I got to remember to start doing that. So back to the LSD thing. Again, you don't want to do a hallucinogenic drug, particularly one that's known for creating visuals and taking you out of touch of reality. That's not one to do by yourself, right? So I got this white blotter. It was just a single hit. Took it, and I was hanging out with the flute individual. I can't remember his name, but the flute player. And he gave me a glass of wine, and there was somebody else there too. And I can't remember if it was boyfriend or if it was, it might have been the property manager might have been sitting down there with me anyway. It doesn't really matter. He gave me a glass of wine, and we were sitting there talking. Everything was great. And I was really starting to feel it. Now, again, just a side note, for those of you who don't know hallucinogenic drugs, they come on in a wave. Acid is about, on average, an 8-hour trip. This is what I have experienced every single time. This is not because I say this. This is what I've experienced. Depending on the acid and depending on, I think, what I have come to believe, your weight as a person and how much you take, it's just like anything else. Somewhere within 45 minutes to about an hour and 15 minutes, you're going to start to feel it, and you're going to start to what's called peak. And peaking is literally what it sounds. It's just the trip getting better and better and better and better all the way until it gets to like a plateau, and then you're really just tripping for a good long time. On acid, it's usually about, a good trip for me would usually last about 4 to 5 hours, because you have the come up and you have the come down. The whole experience is about 8 hours. Microdots for me usually lasted about 6 hours. Mushrooms, actually, it all depends. The mushrooms that I've done as of late, since they are decriminalized, those have been lasting me more like 4 or 5 hours. But they're also processed mushrooms, chocolate, fucking delicious chocolate, I might add. So maybe that has a little bit to do with it. That might change how quickly, because I will say this, they kick in really quick, like 25 minutes after taking those, they're there. Again, all these things are really just dependent on the drug, but there's always a time for it to kick in when it comes to these hallucinogenics. So I was now really starting to feel it. Let's say, I think I was probably somewhere in about that hour and a half range. So I was almost to full peak. I mean, I was laughing. I was having a good time. Everything life was probably the greatest moment that it had ever been up until that young lad's point, right? And that's when I spilt the fucking Merlot on this dude's white carpet. Oh my God. If you've ever done acid, when I say your high comes down, like you could feel it. It's like I jumped off a fucking cliff and hit the ground. I was like, every bit of happiness was drained out of me, as if I had, again, shot somebody in the head. It was most incredible. Actually, it was probably the worst that I ever felt, and that amazed me too, because I just kept staring at it, and he was like, "Oh, it's okay," and he was cleaning it up, and I couldn't do anything. I was like paralyzed with, just feeling like a piece of shit. It was literally paralyzing. So, I couldn't move. I'm staring at this. Now at this point, probably 10 minutes have gone by now after the spill. And I'm staring at the big red stain because obviously it left one. And now remember, I'm on this acid, right? So I mean, it's just compounding. I remember I was just staring at it, and it was like tunnel vision, just me and the stain. You know, I'm just looking at it, and that's when, for the first time, shit started to get crazy. First, you know, I grew up in South Carolina, a no-name state out there that nobody knows about, right? But that's where I grew up, and so I'm sitting there staring at the stain, and I kid you not, the first thing it did was it turned into the perfect outline of South Carolina. I mean, God knows how many maps I stared at as a kid, right? Growing up, learning that history and all that shit. But that's what it turned into first. Maybe it was also where I came from, right? So fucking turns into South Carolina. Then it starts turning into other shit. And I'm just like, I'm just like wide-eyed staring at it like, holy shit. And then, I can't remember what it was in between. I can only remember the very first image that it was. And I can only remember the very last thing that happened with that spot. And as I'm staring at it, this fucking like demonic clown just comes up out of the fucking stain with like this look of like, gotcha. And I was like, holy shit. I fucking ran down to my apartment. And I know that my friend, I mean, I was literally freaking out. And of course, my friend had to go somewhere else. That I wasn't supposed to stay with the Philharmonic dude all night. That was never the plan. I was just hanging out there for a little bit. And then my friend that I was going to hang out with tells me that he has to go. He has an emergency, right? And what I mean by that is when I went back downstairs, he came back down. It wasn't the project manager that came back down. There was actually three of us in there now. I remember. I mean, it was a long time ago, so forgive me, folks. I do apologize if I don't always remember these facts perfectly the way that they happen. It's age. It happens. But what I can tell you is I remember standing there, and I'd calm back down after, he was like, hey, dude, it's just a visual, I was like, yeah, I just didn't really expect it. We talked about it. And we're sitting there for like 30, 40 minutes, and all of a sudden he gets gets a message or something. I can't remember. We didn't have phones like that back then. I think he went, that's what it was. He went over to his house. He went over real quick to his apartment where they had answering machines, right? Because this is like 91. And he got a message, and it was emergency. And he comes back over like, dude, I got to go. And I was like, oh, man, okay. And I had no idea what I was in for. But I will tell you this, that is another story completely unto itself. It is a good story because you should never be left alone while you're way up here on LSD. I'll give you one clue to that story. You should never be left alone with a pet, period. So having said that, and finishing out the stories, I'm going to take this hit here. I know the lag's out there, but let's see if we can get somebody to say 1 or 2 dabs to end the show. I mean, I know what it should be, but it all depends on what you folks say out there. There we go. We got that one ready. I mean, clearly I'm going to take 1. That's no doubt. All right. You got to love lag. Yeah, I'm also wondering, just on a side note to all those folks who are not listening, I'm curious, this 420, really regardless of what Eastern, what time zone you're in, seems like to me would be one of the, so there we go. Seems to me that it would be one of the highest traffic times, which would also cause, yeah, you guessed it, lag, because the more traffic's on there, right? That's just my guess. And what I mean by that is you still have, at 420, it's not recreational only. You have only a certain amount of businesses that are running heavy on the internet, right? After hours. And that's the vast minority. So being that I am always honest and transparent, I think it goes without saying, I may have to consider broadcasting at a more appropriate time where I have, that also means, look at the other side. That also means more people are home, right? At 420, and I would classify myself as NSFW, right? Not suitable for, that was going to be funny. Never mind. Not suitable for work. You could say not sexual for work, but that just doesn't. A lot of people won't get that. All right, last dab, and then I'm going to call it a day. I do need to promote this t-shirt giveaway. I will say this: the t-shirt is actually quite comfortable. It's really cool. It is one of a kind. You can only get it from me, obviously, because it has my logo on there. Again, I'm not trying to push those t-shirts in the sense of selling them, although that might happen one day if this thing takes off to any degree. But right now, they're just giveaways, which I think make them just a little bit more cool and limited. Oh, goodness. Why did those tiny dabs get me? Isn't that funny? That's what happens when you get old. All right. So most people don't know how normal strange is. If you didn't catch any of what's going on, I'm extremely strange, and I will continue to prove that with many of the upcoming stories. With that said, everybody believes that how does my saying go? I'm sorry, I got a little high on that last one. It made me cough. There's a brief moment of high. Oh, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. Everybody else thinks that yours stinks, or that everybody's stinks, that is. Mine stink like fine brewed coffee. There's the foam. And medical grade legalized weed. I do love the legal part. I can't lie. I love living here. It's so awesome these days. Oh, orange shirt. Here, let me just let's see what that was real quick. Orange shirt. I get it. So it is gun responsibility, and I am completely perfect and 100% on board with that. I don't get political. I don't think this has anything to do with politicalness in my, if I don't think it's political, I don't believe it's political. That's just my own opinion, right? I told you opinions are like assholes. Mine stink. Smell like coffee. Great. And I know I'll come back to that real quick, but yeah, I have no problem with owning a gun. I have no problem with needing to own a gun or feeling like you need to own a gun. None of those things I have an issue with. I do have an issue with, unresponsible, or how do you put it? Not being responsible. I'm trying to think of the negative version of that word, and I just can't. Irresponsibility. I don't like irresponsibility with anything, which is and I'm obviously not perfect. And by no means, by the way, I just want to come back to the beginning of the episode since we're still all here. The fact that I'm trying to be twice as nice as I was a dick doesn't mean that I'm still not a dick. It doesn't mean that I'm still, that I'm some fucking perfect saint or angel or something like that. I mean, we're all just people, which means I make mistakes every day, just like you folks. I'm just trying for me. And it doesn't mean that if you're not trying, you're not good. This is just what I have to do. If it inspires you to go do more, or more importantly, if it inspires you to have a better day, that's really the more important thing for me. That's what I'm hoping for, is that through watching these videos, somebody somewhere out there will have a better day than they did when they didn't watch the video. It's just that simple. So again, everybody out there thinks that opinions are like assholes, right? Mine are those coffee opinions and the weed opinions. I'll go ahead and hit it one more time. Let's go to this one. That one's still got a lot of green on her. I love this one. It's like a Cuban cigar when you hold it like that. Anyway, with that, I hope that everybody has a wonderful afternoon, wonderful evening, actually, now, since we're coming into basically 5 o'clock here. And folks out there in the East are already in the evening. So have a wonderful evening. Have an even better weekend. Most likely, I'll probably be going live again tomorrow. Anyway, Peace out until the next episode.